Hachette Audio presents Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base. Written and read by Annie Jacobsen.
Prologue, The Secret City. This book is a work of nonfiction. The stories I tell in this narrative are real. None of the people are invented. Of the 74 individuals interviewed for this book with rare, first-hand knowledge of the secret base, 32 of them lived and worked at Area 51. Area 51 is the nation's most secret domestic military facility. It is located in the high desert of southern Nevada, 75 miles north of Las Vegas. Its facilities have been constructed over the past 60 years around a flat, dry lake bed called Groom Lake. The U.S. government has never admitted it exists. Key to understanding Area 51 is knowing that it sits inside the largest government-controlled land parcel in the United States, the Nevada Test and Training Range. Encompassing 4,687 square miles, this area is just a little smaller than the state of Connecticut, 3 times the size of Rhode Island, and more than twice as big as Delaware. Set inside this enormous expanse is a smaller parcel of land, 1,350 square miles, called the Nevada Test Site, the only facility like it in the continental United States. Beginning in 1951, on the orders of President Harry Truman, 105 nuclear weapons were exploded above ground at the site, and another 828 were exploded underground in tunnel chambers and deep vertical shafts. The last nuclear weapons test on American soil occurred at the Nevada Test Site on September 23, 1992. The facility contains the largest amount of weapons-grade plutonium and uranium in the United States not secured inside a nuclear laboratory. Area 51 sits just outside of the Nevada Test Site, approximately 5 miles to the northeast of the northernmost corner, which places it inside the Nevada Test and Training Range. Because everything that goes on at Area 51, and most of what goes on at the Nevada Test and Training Range, is classified when it is happening, this is a book about secrets. 2 early projects at Groom Lake have been declassified by the Central Intelligence Agency: the U-2 spy plane, declassified in 1998, and the A-12 Oxcart spy plane, declassified in 2007. And yet in thousands of pages of declassified memos and reports, the name Area 51 is always redacted or blacked out. There are only 2 known exceptions, most likely mistakes. This is a book about government projects and operations that have been hidden for decades, some for good reasons, others for arguably terrible ones, and one that should never have happened at all. These operations took place in the name of national security, and they all involved cutting-edge science. The last published words of Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, were, "Science is not everything, but science is very beautiful." After reading this book, readers can decide what they think about what Oppenheimer said. This is a book about black operations, government projects that are secret from Congress and secret from the people who make up the United States. To understand how black projects began and how they continue to function today, one must start with the creation of the atomic bomb. The men who ran the Manhattan Project wrote the rules about black operations. The atomic bomb was the mother of all black projects, and it is the parent from which all black operations have sprung. Building the bomb was the single most expensive engineering project in the history of the United States. It began in 1942, and by the time the bomb was tested inside the White Sands Proving Ground in the New Mexico high desert on July 16, 1945, the bomb's price tag, adjusted for inflation, was $28 billion. The degree of secrecy maintained while building the bomb is almost inconceivable. When the world learned that America had dropped an atomic weapon on Hiroshima, no one was more surprised than the U.S. Congress, none of whose members had had any idea it was being developed. Vice President Harry Truman had been equally stunned to learn about the bomb when he became President of the United States on April 12, 1945. Truman had been chairman of the Senate Special Committee to investigate the National Defense Program when he was vice president, meaning he was in charge of watching how money was spent during the war. Yet he'd had no idea about the atomic bomb until he became president and the information was relayed to him by two men, Vannevar Bush, the president's science advisor, and Henry L. Stimson, the nation's Secretary of War. Bush was in charge of the Manhattan Project and Stimson was in charge of the war. The Manhattan Project employed 200,000 people. It had 80 offices and dozens of production plants spread out all over the country, including a 60,000-acre facility in rural Tennessee that pulled more power off the nation's electrical grid than New York City did on any given night. And no one knew the Manhattan Project was there. That is how powerful a black operation can be. After the war ended, Congress, the legislators who had been so easily kept in the dark for 2.5 years, was given stewardship of the bomb. It was now up to Congress to decide who would control its unimaginable destructive power. With the passing of the Atomic Energy Act of 1946, a terrifying and unprecedented new system of secret-keeping emerged. The presidential system was governed by presidential executive orders regarding national security information. But the newly created Atomic Energy Commission, formerly known as the Manhattan Project, was now in charge of regulating the classification of all nuclear weapons information in a system that was totally separate from the president's system. In other words, for the first time in American history, a federal agency run by civilians, the Atomic Energy Commission, would maintain a body of secrets classified based on factors other than presidential executive orders. It is from the Atomic Energy Act of 1946 that the concept "born classified" came to be, and it was the Atomic Energy Commission that would oversee the building of 70,000 nuclear bombs in 65 different sizes and styles. Atomic Energy was the first entity to control Area 51, a fact previously undisclosed, and it did so with terrifying and unprecedented power. One simply cannot consider Area 51's uncensored history without addressing this cold, hard, and ultimately devastating truth. The Atomic Energy Commission's restricted data classification was an even more terrifying anomaly, something that could originate outside the government through the thinking and research of private parties. In other words, the Atomic Energy Commission could hire a private company to conduct research for the Commission, knowing that the company's thinking and research would be born classified, and that even the President of the United States would not necessarily have a need to know about it. In 1994, for instance, when President Clinton created, by executive order, the Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments to look into secrets kept by the Atomic Energy Commission, certain records involving certain programs inside and around Area 51 were kept from the President on the grounds that he did not have a need to know. 2 of these programs, still classified, are revealed publicly for the first time in this book. One of the Atomic Energy Commission's former classifications officers, Donald Woodbridge, characterized the term "born classified" as something that gives the professional classificationist unanswerable authority. Area 51 lives on as an example. Of the Atomic Energy Commission's many facilities across the nation, it is now called the Department of Energy, the single largest facility is, and always has been, the Nevada test site. Other parts of the Nevada test and training range would be controlled by the Department of Defense. But there were gray areas, like Area 51, craggy mountain ranges and flat, dry lake beds, sitting just outside the official borders of the Nevada test site and not controlled by the Department of Defense. These areas are where the most secret projects were set up. No one had a need to know about them. And for decades, until this book was published, no one would. Chapter 1. The riddle of Area 51. Area 51 is a riddle. Very few people comprehend what goes on there, and millions want to know. To many, Area 51 represents the Shangri-La of advanced espionage and warfighting systems. To others, it is the underworld of aliens and captured UFOs. The truth is that America's most famous, secret, federal facility was set up in order to advance military science and technology faster and further than any other foreign powers in the world. Why it is hidden from the world in southern Nevada's high desert, within a ring of mountain ranges, is the nexus of the riddle of Area 51. To enter Area 51 requires a top-secret security clearance and an invitation from the uppermost echelons of U.S. military or intelligence agency elite. The secrecy oath that is taken by every individual who visits the base before arriving there is both sacred and legally binding. For those without an invitation, to get even the slimmest glimpse of Area 51 requires extraordinary commitment, including a 10-hour block of time, a four-wheel drive vehicle, and a pair of good hiking boots. Through binoculars from the top of a mountain called Tikaboo Peak, located 26 miles east of Area 51, one can, on occasion, see a flicker of activity. Daylight hours are bad for viewing because there is too much atmospheric heat distortion coming off the desert floor to differentiate airplane hangars from sand. Nighttime is the best time to witness the advanced technology that defines Area 51. Historically, it has been under the cover of darkness that secret airplanes and drones are flight tested before they are sent off on missions around the world. If you stand on Tikaboo Peak in the dead of night and look out across the darkened valley for hours, suddenly the Area 51 runway lights may flash on. An aircraft slides out from inside a hangar and rolls up to its temporarily illuminated runway. After a brief moment, it takes off, but by the time the wheels leave the ground, the lights have cut out and the valley has been plunged back into darkness. This is the Black World. According to most members of the Black World who are familiar with the history of Area 51, the base opened its doors in 1955 after two CIA officers, Richard Bissell and Herbert Miller, chose the place to be the test facility for the agency's first spy plane, the U-2. Part of Area 51's secret history is that the so-called Area 51 zone had been in existence for 4 years by the time the CIA identified it as a perfect clandestine test facility. Never before disclosed is the fact that Area 51's first customer was